Graphics cards from Matrox are well regarded in the retro PC community. The most surprising to me was I ran into all sorts of issues with this one, with drivers, performance and also compatibility. Let's take a closer look at the card. Beautiful design, and yeah, dual head. We have a VGA port at the bottom, DVI at the top. Here we can see the GPU under a passive cooler, so that's nice to see. And underneath the GPU, an interesting detail, there's a chip from PLX. This is a conversion bridge. The GPU is actually connected to AGP, so this chip bridges from AGP to PCI. Here we can see some details of the card at the back, the model number and so on. And there's also a date, 2004, October 15. So this graphics card is a recent pickup. I already have the AGP version, but this one is for PCI and I think this is more interesting. It is from Matrox. It is the G450 Dualhead DVI. Now, obviously, this video card is of interest for systems without AGP. So this could be an older system, maybe one of those Pentium 3 OEM boxes that don't have an AGP slot. But I'm more interested in picking a more recent system. For example, going with socket 775. Here we have PCI Express and PCI slots, so we can turn a more modern PC into a smooth retro gaming PC with a real vintage graphics card. The video card fired up right away. I'm starting off with a socket 775 motherboard with a G41 chipset. It is from Gigabyte, the GA41MT S2 PT with the F2 BIOS. I'm testing with two operating systems to begin with. Windows XP. I use the Easy to Boot project for that one. Make sure you hold down the Shift key when you see the Easy to Boot logo. It will load a faster USB 2 storage driver. And the first thing I'm doing is actually flashing the BIOS. There is some bit rotting going on with Matrox cards. So it came with version 1.6-29 and I flashed it to version 2.1-37. We continue after a quick word from our video sponsor.
This video is brought to you by PCBWay, our channel sponsor, your one-stop shop for printed circuit boards manufacturing and assembly, but also CNC machining, 3D printing and more. Check the video description for links and more information.
Now, because this graphics card has DVI, all the captures today are done with DVI out. I'm using a DVI to HDMI cable into my RetroTink 4K scaler, because that one can also capture and scale from HDMI. And straight away I noticed some issues in BIOS and MS-DOS. The output is 640 by 480, but with letterboxing, so that's a little bit disappointing. It handles this aspect differently compared to ATI and NVIDIA. I also noticed that the image is a little bit unstable. It's wobbling or flickering horizontally a little bit, but there's a setting in the RetroTink 4K under HDMI receiver setup, input decimation, turn the pixels from off to on, and there you go, the image is now stable. I'm starting off with Windows 98 quick install, the stock ISO with all the updates. It installed perfectly fine. I'm using a Western Digital Blue 500 GB. It's connected directly to the SATA board on the motherboard. I'm creating a 40 GB partition and then installed everything without any issues. Here we are on the desktop. And now let's have a look at the drivers. And this is where I ran into some issues. And none of the drivers would install. So the latest one is version 6.83. I also tried 6.82. And none of the drivers would install. They would just say no compatible video card found, both under Windows 98 and under Windows XP. Even Snappy Driver Installer Origin couldn't detect the video card. Very unusual. It usually finds all sorts of devices under Windows XP, but fails with this one. Now, I've seen this behavior before on some other video cards. So what you can do is go through Device Manager and manually pick a driver. This workaround worked under XP and Windows 98, and the device to choose is for me the English driver version of the G450 Dualhead DVI PCI. And now everything is looking good. I'm changing the color depth to 32 bits. We're getting all the driver options, but I'm also installing power strip because some of the options are not accessible through the Windows control panel. Specifically for benchmarking, I'm disabling VSync. I'm also enabling an option for paletted textures. We will check out compatibility a little bit later in this video. Under Windows XP, I happened to run the Everest program, which shows you all sorts of information about your hardware, and it gives us a clue. It identifies the card as the Matrox Millennium G450 Dualhead PCI IBM. So it seems this could be an OEM version. I checked the device manager with the device IDs. Ven and dev, those IDs match with the driver, but the subsys string is a little bit different. So I did some driver modding in the INF file. Right at the bottom, there is a text string, so I copy and paste that and add in brackets IBM to that string. And then all the way up in the INF file, there's another string where I'm changing the subsys ID to match the card. And now look at that, the driver is now working with the setup program. It picks up everything automatically, so that's nice to see. And then it was time to run some benchmarks and more troubles, unfortunately. Here we can see 3D Mark 99 Max, and right away I can see the performance is not where it should be. In the beginning, just around 20 FPS, that is way below what we should be seeing. We should be seeing something around 60. And the end result score, we're getting 1382 in 3D Mark 99 Max and only 866 in 3D Mark 2000. I ran the Draken benchmark. I'm not sure what setting I used, but it completed with only 10 FPS, so that's really poor. Luckily, I have a lot of parts lying around to test. So I'm swapping everything for a slot 1 motherboard, the Asus P3BF with a Pentium 3 500. I didn't reinstall Windows, simply plugged the same 500GB SSD into a StarTech ID to SATA adapter. I reinstalled the graphics drivers, made sure all the driver settings are correct, and let's run 3D Mark again, and straight away we can see it's running much better. We're getting 4528 in 3D Mark 99 Max and 1979 in 3D Mark 2000. So this is looking much better. Quake 3 now also runs a lot smoother. Now the Pentium 3 500, it's a little bit on the weak side, but even this one is outperforming the Socket 775 system, which shouldn't be happening. So I went back to the Socket 775. I tried all sorts of BIOS options. I even reinstalled Windows 98 onto a different SSD. This time a vanilla installation. Maybe the quick install version contains some patches or updates that's causing issues, but no, the same identical low performance. Right in the beginning of 3D Mark 99 Max, I'm seeing the 20 FPS, and that's just really too slow. So what can we do? Well, we are swapping to another motherboard, also Socket 775, but this one with the G31 chipset and DDR2 memory. It's also from Gigabyte, the GA31M-S2L with the F10F BIOS. So again, didn't reinstall Windows, just plugged in the SSD. It picked up a few new devices, reinstalled the video card drivers. I fired up 3D Mark 99 Max, and look at that. Finally, we're getting full speed, starting the benchmark at around 90 FPS, and then it's dropping down a little bit. This is what I wanted to see. We are getting 4,547 3D Marks, and look at the CPU score that Socket 775 system, making sure we are not bottlenecked by the CPU. And here 3D Mark 2000, 2004 3D Marks. So 3D Mark doesn't really run that much better compared to the Pentium 3, but we can be assured now that we are not CPU limited. Let's go over the driver settings. Here we have the information tab, so you can check out the version I'm using. It's 6.83 for the driver, and here are the options. There's some compatibility and performance settings you can toggle. I left everything at default, but using PowerStrip to disable VSync. And now let's run our usual time demo benchmarks. Here's some footage of GL Quake running at 640 by 480 with 16-bit colors, and it runs great. Completes at 120 FPS. And here are the benchmark results. For some reason, the 32-bit color mode just wouldn't work. I got an error. I could run it in window mode, but I wanted to have it in full screen. Moving on to Quake 2, make sure you go into the video options and disable 8-bit textures. And here are the results. I was disappointed. It's really struggling in Quake 2. Quite surprised, because usually if it's doing okay in GL Quake, then Quake 2 is also running okay. But here we are getting under 40 FPS no matter the resolution, even at 640 by 480. Let's have a look at Quake 3. Here are the system settings I'm using. Basically, I'm making sure that the details are all maxed out. And here we also have the driver information page. And again, I have some footage here. This game also seems to be struggling. Sometimes it feels like it's lagging or choking or some rubber banding going on. Here are the results. Even with 16-bit colors, it doesn't really pick up that much speed. So 640 by 480 in 16-bit colors, we're getting only 40.5 FPS. So maybe my expectations are just misaligned. This is really a vintage card, and recently, I've been testing fast video cards like a GeForce FX 5500 and ATI Radeon 9000, and yeah, these are just much more modern video cards. Draken is next. It has a built-in time demo. Here are the settings for graphics and also for sound. And inside the game, there are a few other settings that are easily overlooked. I'm making sure everything is set to the highest option here. And again, we are not hitting 40 FPS, even at 640 by 480 and 16 bits. So this game will chug along at around 30 FPS, unless you really dial down the details. Expandable also gave me issues, a real shame. I love testing this game. I have two versions. One is from GOG, the other one is from the Zoom platform. The GOG release doesn't include the environment mapped bump mapping patch, and the benchmark doesn't run because the CPU is too fast. But otherwise, you can play the game. The Zoom platform release has a few patches applied. One is for the environment mapped bump mapping patch to run on all video cards, but this causes some issues for some reason on this machine. I even installed the vanilla expandable from the ISO with the USB ODE gadget. Here you can see it installing expandable, and then I manually applied the Matrox G400 patch, and the game just crashes to the desktop. So that's a shame. Doesn't seem to be compatible with this system today. And now let's have a look at some of those legacy compatibility features. Table fog is first. Shadow of the Empire works fine. We have beautiful rendered table fog. But I did notice that the audio is cut off and the game also runs too fast. That is the joy of running such a game on a Core 2 machine. It's simply too fast. In Thief 2, well, first I started the demo version. Here the fog wouldn't display, but I don't think that's a big deal because, well, it's the demo version. However, I still want to point it out because on a GeForce, this works fine. The full version, this is the GOG release of Thief 2. Here, the fog renders just fine, so that's a nice thing to have, better than some of the Radeon cards, so a big plus, because many games use table fog and look quite flat and dull without it. In PowerStrip, I see an option for 8-bit paletted textures, and my research showed me that this video card doesn't support 8-bit paletted textures. However, in the game driver, it seems to be working fine. We can see the lights in the beginning of this stage being animated, whereas without 8-bit paletted texture support, you will see static lights. So yeah, I had high hopes going forward. In Final Fantasy VII, the demo, it also reports 8-bit paletted textures are supported. The game seems to be running okay. But then I tested in the Final Fantasy VIII demo. Again, the program reports that there is support, but look at that, we can see some textures flickering. And when I disable 8-bit paletted textures in the driver, well, those flickers go away. But then, of course, the game isn't rendered how it should be. There is also an option for anisotropic filtering under DirectX 3D in the driver. It doesn't seem to do much. I'm using Serious Sam, the first encounter, in DirectX 3D mode. So that game supports both APIs, OpenGL and DirectX 3D. But even with and without this option, it looks exactly the same. No AF whatsoever. You get blurry textures as you look in the distance. So here again, I'm quite spoiled with the image quality for GeForce FX. And now we're getting to the section of the video where I get to sit down and actually play some games. So this is something I started a while ago because all I'm doing is building systems, running benchmarks and putting graphs together. I'm not really playing that much, and I do want to enjoy these old games. I really wanted to continue playing Draken, but the performance is just not good enough. Especially as I progressed further into the game, the graphics become way more demanding, and it was just a slideshow around 20 to 30 FPS. And I don't want to finish this game with lacking performance. So I'll come back to that game with a faster machine. So today we are playing Delta Force. This is a game by NovaLogic and released in 1998. Now NovaLogic, those are the guys behind Comanche. You might remember that helicopter game on MS-DOS with the famous voxel graphics, and we can see voxel graphics throughout. Really nice terrains, mountains, hills and valleys. It's really well done. We are running the game at 800 by 600 resolution. That's the highest we can dial the settings. There are not too many options. There's one setting called turbo mode. You want to leave that on off, because if you turn it on, it will dial down some settings. And I think in the beginning that was set to on, so that was my mistake. This game might just run on the CPU without the video card doing much, so it's nice to have a fast processor. Definitely no performance issues to report. Now, this is the GOG release. In fact, I have 4 games from this series from GOG, and I never got them to run under Windows 98. But the workaround is really simple. There is a netsoc DLL file. Delete that one and then look for one that's called netsoc NLDLL and rename that to netsoc DLL. And voila, the game runs under Windows 98. So this is a tactical shooter. It has more options and aspects to it than I thought it would have. So it's not just a plain shooter game. It's quite slow paced, tries to be very realistic. I play on easy mode. Guys, life is too challenging already. I don't need virtual challenges, so I dial down the AI to easy. And also you get health packs and ammunition packs throughout the levels, and I can see all the enemies on the map. So it's really quite easy to play, but despite that, I still manage to die quite often because being more realistic, if you get hit a few times, you are basically dead. So it's not one of those games where you need to empty a whole clip into enemies. A few bullets and the enemy goes down. There are 4 campaigns with a mission briefing explaining the story. You get to change your loadout, and I quite enjoyed playing it. I did get stuck in the 3rd mission. You're meant to blow up some crates with explosives, but that game mechanic just didn't work at all. The explosion packs, they would disappear and the remote control wouldn't trigger anything. And it turns out this feature got disabled because it caused issues in the multiplayer mode, and they just never re-enabled it in the campaign. So basically they just disabled those types of explosives and breaking the single player campaign. So the workaround is you need to use some other explosion, a grenade or something else, and then you can complete the mission. I completed the first campaign, the Peru campaign, so that's around 25% of the game done. I started the Chad campaign, and so far, yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's not a game, I would say, it's one of those top 10 or top 20 games from 1998, but it's also easy to get into. You can play it here and there. You don't need to study a manual like some flight simulators or anything like that. And I'm eager to check out the other games, see how that franchise develops with the graphics and so on. So yeah, if you see it for cheap on GOG, definitely pick it up, change that DLL file, and you can run it on your Windows 98 retro gaming PC. Well, this video card really put up a fight. Putting this video together took me much longer than I thought it would. I really thought this would be straightforward. Just plug it into the PCI slot and off you go. But we ran into issues with the drivers. So it turns out this is some sort of OEM version for IBM, but modifying the INF file, and off we go without any problems. If you don't want to do that, you can just force the driver through Device Manager. The biggest issue was compatibility and performance. So maybe this conversion chip that bridges between AGP and PCI can cause some compatibility issues with certain motherboards, and I saw that with the G41 chipset mainboard. I think it's isolated to maybe this particular board, because another board from Gigabyte with a G31 chipset, well, that one worked fine. And I believe both motherboards don't use any bridges for the PCI slots. They are natively connected. I was a little bit disappointed with the performance, but maybe my expectations are a little bit off. I did have a look at some of my past videos where I reviewed Matrox cards. They're all HEP and the performance is higher, but not by a lot. The G450 is slower than the G400, for example. If you want good performance, go for a G400 Max. That card is the fastest by a long shot. I still think this video card deserves some attention because it is PCI, and this is of special interest to me and maybe in the future also to you, because we can use more modern systems and just plug this in and off we go. With this particular card, yeah, we did have some hiccups, but in the end, it did get the job done. And then you get modern conveniences, USB 2, nice CPU fans, ATX power supply, solid caps, and so on. This video card can also work well with a Celeron or Pentium 3 machine that doesn't have HEP. Something between 500 megahertz and 1 gigahertz should fit the bill. Be expected to dial down the resolution and the settings. So if you're like me and you go into the settings, you max everything out, you might be a little bit disappointed with the performance. I would love to hear if you have any experience with this card. I've been told that there are some compatibility issues with VIA chipset motherboards. In the user manual, there's actually a reference to the bus mastering feature. It will improve compatibility, but it will also cause lower performance. So that's not what we want. We want bus mastering and full performance. So this one is a little bit picky in regards to what motherboard it will work with. So there you go. That was my take on the Matrox, the PCI version of the G450 Dualhead DVI. Any thoughts and comments, leave them down below. I do read every single comment. You might not get an answer because I am quite busy, but I read every single comment. Saturday morning, I go out, get a cup of coffee, and I check your comments and see how the video did. So yeah, it's a routine of my life now. Also, with the games, what do you think about the game we checked out today, Delta Force? Leave your thoughts down below. And that's it from me for this one. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you soon with another one.